Incredible twist revealed. Single mother's heartwarming act transforms homeless man into billionaire. The late-night air in Chicago was bitter, cutting through Claire's thin coat as she stepped out of the diner. The streetlights flickered, illuminating the bustling world around her, yet inside her chest, a storm brewed. She was bone-tired from her shift, the clatter of dishes still ringing in her ears. But as always, thoughts of her 2 children at home warmed her heart. They were her everything. She tightened her grip on the thin handle of her worn purse, ready to face the cold winds outside. Then, she spotted him. Ben. He was hunched under a threadbare blanket, shielding himself from the ruthless elements. His eyes, worn yet shining with resilience, reflected a life full of hardship. Something tugged at her heart. Instead of rushing home to the warmth of her children, she felt compelled to pause. "Hey there," she said softly, kneeling beside him. She reached back into the diner's leftover stash, her heart swelling with compassion. "You hungry?" Ben looked up, surprise flickering across his rugged face. "You're offering me food?" "Most just look away." "I know what it's like to struggle," she replied, handing him a steaming plate of meatloaf and mashed potatoes. "It's just some leftovers. I can't eat all this." As Ben took the plate, their eyes locked. In that moment, Claire saw not a homeless man, but a veteran filled with untapped potential, a soul waiting to break free from the chains of misfortune. "I used to be a tech consultant," Ben said, savoring the food. Each bite seemed to revive him. "Before all of this happened." Claire's heart raced. Their conversation flowed like the vibrant energy of the city, hope intermingling with despair. As the frigid air surrounded them, she shared a bit of her own story, the weight of grief heavy on her shoulders since her husband had died. That night, under the flickering streetlights, a connection sparked. Here they were, 2 broken people sharing their burdens and dreams. "I have an idea for a business that could help veterans," he said, his eyes lighting up. "It's all about communication, connecting those who served with resources, with one another." An ember of excitement flared in Claire's chest. "I can help you with that," she offered without thinking. "I can help you draft a proposal." Before the enormity of her offer settled, she felt a rush of adrenaline. Balancing her children, her waitressing job, and now this? It was insane. But for the first time in what felt like forever, hope danced in her heart. "Before we continue, I need to let you know about something important that's happening. YouTube has been making changes to the system and many people are losing notifications from channels they follow. If you're enjoying the content, hit that bell and mark all notifications so you don't miss the next videos. And if you can drop a like, it really helps me with reach. Seriously, it makes a difference. Oh, let me know in the comments where you're watching from. I'm always curious to know who's on the other side of the screen." Now let's continue. Days turned into weeks, their friendship blossoming against the backdrop of the diner's chaos and the laughter of Claire's kids. Ben's ideas flourished, each scribbled note a testament to resilience. Yet shadows loomed. Rumors surfaced. A journalist exposed a piece of Ben's past, twisting it into something unrecognizable. As Claire faced the murmurs of doubt and judgment, uncertainty clawed at her. Could she fight for Ben when society painted him as unworthy? At the pitch's eve, with all that weighed upon them, Claire gazed into Ben's eyes, understanding their fates were intertwined. Would she stand by him against the world? Or would fear chain her to silence? As they prepared to crack open the door to a new future, the stakes were higher than ever. Would love, compassion, and courage transcend the labels society placed on them? The night of truth was near, and the clock was ticking. The next morning dawned, gray and heavy. Claire stood at her kitchen counter, pouring cereal for the kids, the usual chaos of breakfast swirling around her. But her mind was elsewhere. The pitch for Ben's business loomed over her like a storm cloud. She stirred the milk mechanically, her thoughts tangled in the web of doubt and determination. "How long until we have to leave, Mommy?" Little Mia's voice broke Claire's reverie. "Just a bit longer, sweetie," Claire replied, forcing a smile as she glanced at her daughter's hopeful eyes. Mia had no idea what was brewing in her mother's heart, a mixture of hope and fear that threatened to swallow her whole, the clock ticked down relentlessly. She recalled the way Ben had looked last night, a mix of excitement and apprehension, his hands trembling as he shared his vision. He was counting on her, and deep down, she knew that she couldn't let him down. As the last spoonful of cereal was eaten and the children headed for the bus stop, Claire headed to the diner one last time before the pitch. She needed a quiet moment to gather her thoughts and mentally prepare. The familiar clatter of dishes greeted her like an old friend, but today, the clinks and clangs felt more like a countdown. Claire spotted Ben in their usual booth, a stack of notes scattered before him. His brow was furrowed, the stress of the impending presentation visible and the lines etched on his face. She slid into the seat across from him, nervously twisting her hair. "Hey," she said softly, trying to infuse warmth into the tense moment. "Hey," he replied, his voice low. Then he took a deep breath. "I've been thinking about what happens if this doesn't go well." Her heart sank. "We can't think like that. We have to focus on all the reasons this will work." Ben shook his head, a hint of a smile flickering for a moment. "You're the silver lining, Claire. You make me believe we can do this." They spent the next few hours practicing their pitch. What started as tentative words gradually transformed into a confident flow. Claire could see the fire igniting in Ben as he spoke about his vision, personal stories that pulled on heartstrings and showed the real impact they could have on veterans' lives. But as they rehearsed, the sound of the phone vibrating on the table drew Claire's attention. She picked it up and saw a message flash across the screen. A local news station had picked up on the stories swirling around Ben again. Another article was set to air, this one even more sensationalized than before. The title alone sent a shiver through her. From veteran to vagrant, the dark truth behind the rebirth. "Claire." Ben's voice snapped her back. "What is it?" She stared at him, uncertainty paving a line between them, her heart racing. "There's going to be another article about you." Ben's face hardened, anger flashing in his eyes. "They're not going to define who I am. I have a plan, and I refuse to let them derail me." "Ben, I know that, but no. It's time I take control of my story." The fire in Ben's words filled Claire with fear and admiration. They were at a crossroads, one that could define everything they had worked for. She felt the weight of the world pressing down on her. A world that wasn't ready to see who Ben truly was. "Okay," Claire breathed, determination flooding back in. "Then let us go out there and show them who you are. Let them see the real you." She reached across the table, placing her hand on his. Their eyes locked, a shared understanding igniting in the space between them. They weren't just battling the media, they were fighting for the truth, for hope, and ultimately, for each other. As they prepared to leave the diner, Claire's heart raced with anticipation. Would they emerge victorious against the tides of judgment? Or would the shadows of their pasts loom too large to overcome? With hope and fear swirling together like the winds of Chicago, the door swung open. The stage awaited them. And with it, the world held its breath. Claire's heart thudded in her chest as they stepped outside, the wind biting at her cheeks. The world felt different today, like a game of chess where every move counted. She glanced at Ben, whose presence radiated a mix of strength and vulnerability. "Are you ready for this?" she asked, trying to gauge his spirits. He took a moment before answering, his breath caught in the cold air. "Ready or not, this is it." His voice was resolute, masking an undercurrent of apprehension. Claire wished she could ease that burden, just a little, but the weight felt shared between them now. As they made their way to the meeting, each step seemed to echo with the hopes of everyone around them, families, friends, veterans. They were all relying on Ben to make a difference. The traffic hummed alongside them, a cacophony that felt oddly reassuring. Everyone rushing to their destinations, unaware of the battle unfolding inside the heart of one man. When they reached the conference center, the reality of the situation intensified. The glossy sign on the wall read, "Veteran Empowerment Initiative Conference." Claire took a deep breath. "Prepare for the spotlight," she whispered, squeezing Ben's hand before they entered. Inside, the ambience buzzed with energy. A crowd filled the auditorium, most seated, some mingling. Claire spotted familiar faces in the audience, supporters from the diner, old friends who had become allies, all ready to champion Ben's cause. "Look at all that support," she said, her confidence bubbling. "You've got this." Ben smiled weakly, but Claire could see his mind racing. He was trying to maintain his composure, but the pressure to perform weighed heavily. They walked towards the stage where the podium stood, waiting like an eager audience of its own. Moments later, he stood in front of them, the spotlight piercing through the dim room. Claire felt pride swell in her chest. Then she noticed the cameras, the glaring lights capturing not just Ben's words, but also his journey. "Hello everyone," Ben began, his voice steady, yet holding a tremor of emotion. "I'm Ben, and I'm here to share my story and the stories of others like me." Claire couldn't help but lean in, drawn to his authenticity that he narrated tales of struggle, recovery, and hope. "We can redefine what it means to come back from the edge." Claire clenched her fists, feeling the room's energy shift as he spoke about dreams deferred and the strength to overcome, but midway through his speech, the door at the back swung open, and a familiar face stepped in, one Claire had hoped she'd never see again. It was Derek, a journalist from the local news, known for his cutting exposés. The air thickened with tension as Derek took a seat, his notepad at the ready. Ben faltered for a split second, and Claire's heart sank. Would this be the moment the media unleashed its cruelty? But she quickly channeled her fear into resolve. "Stay strong, Ben," she thought, willing him to continue. As Ben shifted nervously, Claire caught his eye and offered an encouraging nod, her expression a lifeline. He inhaled deeply, regaining his composure. His voice rang clearer and stronger. "I believe in the power of second chances. I believe in the community that lifts us up." Sparks of energy surged as the audience responded, cheers erupting from familiar faces. Claire's breath caught. She felt the power of his message, but dread loomed with each glance towards Derek, who scribbled furiously, already preparing his story. Would the media story bury Ben's truth under sensationalism? Or could they twist the narrative to something powerful? Claire was trapped in a storm of hope and anxiety, staring down the potential fallout from decisions not yet made. The question lingered. When the applause died down, would it mean triumph or judgment? Ben ended his pitch with a determined punch of passion. "Let us stand together and reshape what it means to rise from the ashes." The crowd erupted into applause, their support wrapping around Ben like a protective barrier, but Claire's heart sank as she noticed Derek rising from his seat, his expression unreadable, a watchful predator ready to strike. Claire's stomach lurched. What would follow this moment of hope? Could their journey withstand the truth of an unforgiving media? As the audience cheered, a storm brewed on the horizon, one that could threaten everything they had fought for. The applause faded, but the tension hung like thick fog in the air. Derek stood, his eyes scanning the room. Claire's chest tightened. She could feel every heartbeat echo in her ears, a reminder that everything they had worked for rested on the knife's edge of this moment. "First, I want to thank Ben for his inspiring words," Derek began, his voice ringing out over the remnants of cheers. "But I have some questions that might shed a different light on this initiative." Ben's face shifted, a shadow crossing his features as he locked eyes with Claire. She could see the questions forming in his mind: doubt, fear, anxiety. Had he prepared for this? She wished she could read the look in Derek's eyes. Would he come at Ben head-on, tearing apart the hopeful narrative the crowd had just embraced? Derek stepped closer to the front, his notepad poised like a weapon. "Ben, you've painted a beautiful picture of resilience and support. But what about the darker side? The accountability. The statistics you chose to ignore." The crowd murmured. Claire scanned the room, watching faces shift from excited to concerned. She caught sight of a few supporters shifting in their seats, uncertainty creeping into their expressions. Ben straightened, the fight igniting within him. "I understand the importance of accountability, Derek. But today isn't just about statistics. It's about people. Real lives that have been impacted. This is a moment for hope." Derek narrowed his eyes, not backing down. "But hope doesn't change facts. What about the veterans who have fallen through the cracks? What do you say to them? What if this initiative fails?" Anger flared in Claire's chest. How dare he undermine the courage Ben had just shown? This was supposed to be a moment of triumph, not a stage for sensationalism. We rise by lifting others, Derek. She shouted, her voice breaking through the cloud of doubt. All eyes turned to Claire, and in that instant, she felt the weight of the world shift. Would she regret putting herself in the spotlight? This isn't just about Ben. It's about us. Every friend, every family member, every veteran who needs support. They deserve our faith, not our doubt. Ben looked at her, his eyes filled with gratitude. It sparked something in him, a resolve she hadn't seen yet. Exactly. We're not just statistics, Derek. We're stories. We are fighting to be seen as more than our past mistakes. The crowd began to nod, voices of agreement rising around them. Claire could see the collective shift, an atmosphere changing from defensive to resolute. Something deep within her believed that they could turn the tide, but Derek was relentless. And if those stories bubble over with danger? What then? What does that mean for this community if they fail? What do people want to hear? Or better yet, what are they really willing to do? There it was again, that familiar sting doubt. Suddenly, Claire felt a prick of frustration mix with fear. Would people turn against Ben? Would this moment be twisted by media into something monstrous? She knew the kind of headlines Derek could craft. And yet, the uproar of support in those seats surged like a wave, drowning out the journalists probing. Every success comes with risk, Ben declared, reclaiming the stage. But we must be willing to take that risk together. With each syllable, Claire felt the audience rally. And then, just when Claire thought they had wrestled control from Derek, he dropped his bombshell. But let us not forget the facts. What happened that night in the alley, Ben? Your past isn't just stories of redemption, it has shadows too. A gasp rippled through the audience. Claire's heart raced, everything tipping. Derek had crossed a line. What was represented to the community as a rehabilitation story also had a darker side attached, he continued, a smirk creeping across his face. Let us hear the full story. The truth, Ben. Claire turned to Ben, whose expression shattered into confusion. The audience grew restless, whispers echoing around her. This wasn't just about Ben anymore. It was about their community, about the light they had brought to those shadows. She squeezed Ben's hand tighter, grounding them both. You can do this. I believe in you. But the question lingered, could that belief withstand the storm Derek was unleashing? As Claire glanced back at the journalist, a chilling fear coursed through her. What truth awaited them on the other side of this moment? The room fell into an awkward silence. Claire could almost hear the collective breath of the audience hitching as they leaned in, anticipation electrifying the air. Derek's words hung like poison in the space between them, and Claire felt the weight of her own breathing. Ben opened his mouth, but no sound came out. Desperation flickered across his face, the kind that pulled at Claire's heart. She wanted to reach out, to pull him back from the brink. But would it help or hurt? She struggled to find her own voice once again, battling the fear that gripped her. Ben, she whispered, amplifying urgency in her plea. His eyes met hers, and for a brief moment, time stood still. The doubt he wore faded as clarity shone through. He took a step forward, shaking off the shadows that threatened to overwhelm him. I understand what you're doing, Derek. You want the sensational story. But I'm not just the sum of my past mistakes. I'm here to tell a different tale. A hush covered the crowd. The flicker of hope ignited in Claire's heart. Would Ben's courage break the chains of doubt? Derek's smirk faded, replaced by an intensity that pierced through. Then share it, Ben. What shadows did you wrestle with that night? Ben inhaled deeply, the silence amplifying the shivers of recollection. That night wasn't just a battle against my demons, he began, his voice steadying. It was a moment of reckoning, a time when I could have let my past define me once and for all. Claire held her breath, not daring to interrupt the flow of Ben's words. With every part of his story he revealed, she could see the audience leaning in, their expressions shifting from judgment to understanding. I was a soldier, yes. I lost my way, and yes, I stumbled. But in those darkest moments, I found the glimmers of humanity still inside me, a spark that propelled me forward. Derek's eyes narrowed, attempting to cut him off. But what about the fallout? Those you hurt? The despair? Ben surged forward, his resolve translating into power. Even with all that pain, I've learned that our failures don't define us. They can lead to redemption. I'm here to show that we can rise from the ashes, but it takes the community to lift each other up, not tear them down. You, Derek, should know that words can carry bullets too. The crowd reacted with a roar of applause, sending tremors of hope through the room. Claire's heart soared. She saw the connection forming, a unification against the storm Derek unleashed. Perhaps, just perhaps, this was their chance. That's right. She shouted, heart racing at the tiny spark igniting the audience. Together, we hold the power to reshape our own narratives. In the midst of it all, Claire noticed Derek's frustration morphing. His smug composure faltered as he glanced around at the shifting tide. But what if this initiative falls flat? He pressed, desperately seeking to maintain his hold on the crowd. Then we adapt. We learn and we grow together. Isn't that the point of this? Ben steadied himself further, a wave of energy radiating through him. Cheers erupted around them, swaying the remaining hearts of doubt. But in that sea of voices, Claire spotted a figure at the back, an old soldier, scarred and weary, but with vibrant hope in his eyes. His presence echoed loudly, grounding everything Ben said with undeniable proof. This wasn't just talk, this was truth in motion. See that man back there? Claire pointed, drawing attention. He represents the power of a second chance. The kind of impact we aim to have, saying we choose faith, not fear. Derek's posture stiffened, the crowd's buoyant energy rising like a tidal wave against his reticence. The challenge grew larger, pressing down on him with every shout of support. But still, he clung to his gleaming facade, refusal etched on his features. This wasn't over. Just when it appeared hope had won, Claire felt the ground shift again beneath them. Instead of conceding, Derek leaned in with one final question that hung dangerously in the air. What's stopping you from slipping back again, Ben? He'd thrown out the bait. An invisible thread stretched between past and future, rendering a choice that could define them all. But even as the noise resounded around her, Claire's instincts twisted inside. What if Derek had struck a deeper nerve that could unravel everything? Her heart raced at the possibility. Can we keep the hope alive? She murmured, needing to believe in the answer. What kind of battle were they really in? Just as clarity dawned, she realized there was more at play. And she had to make a choice that could change everything. Would they stand unified or fall apart? The energy in the room crackled as everyone held their breath, anticipating Ben's response. Claire took a half step forward, her heart racing, feeling the electric tension in the air. Ben shook his head, his voice steady but filled with vulnerability. Nothing. Nothing besides the strength of this community and the choices I continue to make each day. He glanced back into the crowd, locking eyes with the old soldier again, seeing not just a reflection of himself but the perfect embodiment of resilience. Derek's eyes glinted with a combination of awe and annoyance. That's a nice soundbite, but how do I know it's the truth? Ben's brow furrowed slightly. Because I've lived it, because every single day, there are small choices that lead me toward healing instead of despair. I refuse to let my past dictate my future. Claire could feel the warmth of encouragement radiate from the crowd behind her. It was as if one heartbeat pulsed through them. She could see it in their eyes, recognition, understanding, a desire to lift one another up. It was a force that no one could deny. But what if you fall? Derek pressed again, sharper this time, desperation seeping into his voice. What if the second chances slip away? Ben took a step closer to the edge of the stage, lowering his voice just enough for the crowd to lean in. I've faced that question countless times. But you see, I've learned that life is not about falling, it's about how you get back up, how you reach for someone when you feel like giving up. And yes, I've stumbled. But I cling to hope for every person who feels lost and forgotten. His words hung in the air, a heavy truth that spoke to every heart in the room. Claire felt a tear slip down her cheek, a blend of fear, admiration, and hope coursing through her. The applause erupted again, loud and wild, drowning out Derek's next attempt to interject. Claire turned to the crowd, a wave of emotions cascading over her. This moment was bigger than just Ben's story. It was the collective story of everyone who had ever faced darkness and found a flicker of light. Derek's face contorted, his calculated control slipping. You think that's all it takes? Just words and empty promises? This isn't a fairy tale. But with that statement, the crowd erupted again, a chorus of voices urging him to see the light. You're wrong, Derek. It's our stories, our experiences that create that change. And we're ready to fight for it. In that instant, it wasn't just Ben who stood strong. It was Claire, the old soldier, and everyone affirming their own strength together. But the tide was shifting, and Derek, cornered like a wild animal, was growing increasingly desperate. As the cheers echoed, Claire felt the pulse of resolve within her. Derek, it doesn't matter if you believe it. We believe in each other. The true power lies in the connection we forge, the hope we nurture. Derek's eyes darkened momentarily, but something flickered there, fear or realization. Claire couldn't quite tell. Then she looked towards Ben, whose face radiated determination. What matters is we move forward. We create a community where even those who had lost their way can find their place again. You can either join us, or you can hold on to the shadows. The room held its breath, waiting for the next move. Claire squeezed her fists, her mind racing with a mix of hope and what-ifs as the atmosphere grew heavier. As Derek glared at them, Claire wondered if this moment would lead to a breakthrough or a breakdown. Would he reach for the light, or cling to the darkness? Her heart thudded in time with the rising tension. The stakes had never been higher, and suddenly, it felt as if every eye in the room was waiting for the final blow, to see who would emerge victorious. Choose, Derek, Claire whispered breathlessly. This is your moment too. The silence that followed was thick with suspense, and she felt the world around her teeter on the brink of a transformation or disaster. What would he choose? Derek's breathing quickened, and for a brief moment, Claire thought she saw a flicker of uncertainty in his eyes. It was subtle, but enough to spark a flicker of hope in her chest. The crowd remained on edge, buoyed by a collective sense of urgency and anticipation. Would he finally let down his guard? Don't you get it? Derek's voice was almost a growl, raw and trembling. You think these words are enough? Life isn't a game where we can just restart. The stakes, they are far too real. The tension radiated from him, and Claire felt the weight of his pain pressing against her heart. Life is real for all of us. Ben shot back, unwavering. But that's why we must choose hope. It's the only way forward. His words ignited the crowd again, rallying the spirit of resilience that had filled the room. They were no longer just spectators, they were comrades in a shared fight, yet, instead of joining their fervor, Derek backed away, shaking his head. Hope. You think it's that simple? His voice trembled with frustration. I've seen too many people let down, too many dreams crushed. I'm not buying into your fairy tale. Claire felt a pang in her chest. The painful truth in Derek's voice resonated with her, reminding her of the times she too had felt lost, adrift in the tumult of life. But she also knew something essential. It had not been the absence of hope that had made her struggle, it had been the silence that followed despair. We can't heal alone. Claire stepped forward, her voice ringing clear. Derek, you're not the only one carrying burdens. This community has felt pain, and yet here we are, standing together. We find our strength through connection. Look at us. She gestured to the crowd, a tapestry of faces brightening with every word. We aren't here pretending everything's perfect. We're standing up and fighting because life deserves to be fought for. The silence broke, replaced by whispers of agreement rippling through the audience. Derek's eyes widened, and for the first time, doubt wove its way through the anger etched into his features. He was narrowing the distance between himself and the crowd in small, inadvertent steps. What if you fall and they leave you behind? He asked, softer now, almost pleading. But what if you fly? Ben countered, stepping toward him with open arms. What if you find a place where a hand on your back can lift you higher than you ever dared to dream? Claire's heart raced as she watched sheer conviction spread among the crowd, rippling like a wave that could wash away Derek's shadows. She sensed the turning tide, and yet fear still clutched her. Was he capable of accepting their invitation into the light? Derek hesitated, his expression shifting, caught in the pull between holding on to his pain and the possibility of something more. You don't have to walk this path alone, Claire continued softly. We're here. We'll stand beside you. As the silence stretched, Claire's heart thudded. Would he take that step? Make your choice, Derek, she whispered again, the weight of their shared fears and hopes packed into her words. Then suddenly, all eyes shifted, drawn to a flicker of movement. Claire followed the gaze, and her breath caught. In that instant, she realized it wasn't just Derek's decision that mattered. It was about to be more than any of them expected. Rising from the back of the room, a woman with bright eyes and a determined expression stepped forward. It struck Claire as she recognized her, the single mother everyone knew for her kindness and community spirit. Derek, wait! She called out, her voice breaking the tension like a beacon. I think you need to hear what I have to say. With that simple statement, the air shifted again. Claire could feel the waves of anticipation rolling through the crowd once more. What could she possibly reveal that would change everything? The mystery enveloped the room, as all eyes turned toward the woman, waiting eagerly for her words to draw back the veil of uncertainty that gripped Derek's heart. Claire barely breathed, her heart pulsating with a mix of excitement and fear. Could this be the moment? I've been where you are, Derek, the woman said, her voice carrying through the hushed crowd. Her eyes held a vulnerability that resonated deeply with Claire. Just like you, I believed that hope was a mirage, something always out of reach. Derek stared at her, his brow furrowed, the anger in his chest faltering against curiosity. I was a single mother, barely scraping by, feeling the world closing in around me. She paused, swallowing hard. I thought I was completely alone. I thought my struggles were mine to bear and mine alone. The crowd leaned in, sensing the poignancy of her story. But then one day, I found a community. People just like you all, she gestured to the audience, her voice growing steadier. They taught me that vulnerability is part of strength. They showed me the beauty of sharing my burdens, of letting someone lift me when I couldn't lift myself. I began to heal. Claire could see Derek's expression change, cracks forming in his tough exterior. I was terrified of asking for help, the woman continued. But when I did, I discovered something extraordinary. Little by little, people stepped up. They listened. They cared. I found a job through a friend of a friend, which turned into a career. I learned that what we can't overcome on our own, we can conquer together. There were murmurs of agreement throughout the crowd. Claire felt a spark of hope ignite within her. It was the recognition of shared humanity, the acceptance that each story was threaded with struggle. The woman took a deep breath. And yes, I'm still learning. I still face challenges. But now, when I look back at that scared mother who felt like the world was crumbling, I see a woman who has built a foundation of resilience and love. And that's what I want for you, Derek. To see the strength within you, and the power of this community to lift you higher than you've ever imagined. Derek's eyes glimmered with unshed tears, and Claire could sense the tremor of his heart, the weight of years beginning to lift. For a moment, the crowd was still, suspended in anticipation. Life may not be perfect, he finally said, his voice quivering. But what if we really could find something beautiful in all this chaos? The woman smiled gently. That's the beginning of faith, Derek. You won't know until you try. The crowd erupted into applause, the sound echoing off the walls like a resounding promise. Derek stood there, vulnerability washing over him like the first rays of dawn. It was as if he was finally allowing a glimmer of light to seep through the cracks of his despair. Claire felt tears prick at the corners of her eyes. This moment held weight. She could see how profoundly it was shifting the atmosphere, both for Derek and the crowd, who now seemed transformed by hope. But then, from the back of the room, loud banging erupted. A group of men stormed in, faces set with determination. "What is going on here?" one of them shouted, cutting through the revelry. Their presence disrupted the fragile moment of connection. Derek stepped back instinctively, his newfound courage crumbling beneath the weight of the interruption that felt all too familiar. Claire's heart raced. Who were these men? What did they want? She instinctively moved closer to Derek, the collective fear of the crowd palpable, ready to protect what they had just begun to build. What challenge were they about to face? Would they reclaim this moment of hope, or would it turn into yet another setback? Derek's breath caught in his throat as he watched the intruders. There were 3 of them, their postures radiating aggression, their eyes scanning the crowd like predators. The energy in the room shifted. What had been an uplifting moment of hope now teetered on the edge of chaos. "What do you think you're doing here?" one of the men barked, a sneer curling at the corners of his mouth. The laughter and applause faded, replaced by a stirring unease as people shuffled back, inching toward the walls, seeking an escape. The woman who had spoken so courageously stood her ground, her eyes blazing with determination. "We're sharing stories," she said firmly, her voice steady, though a tremor threaded through it. "And helping one another helping?" The man interrupted, letting out a harsh laugh that felt like a knife cutting through the delicate atmosphere. "You think talking helps? This isn't a charity case. You're all wasting your time. There's nothing to be gained here." Derek felt anger bubbling up inside him, but more than that, a deep sadness. This man didn't he understand? Didn't he see the power of connection? Didn't he know the weight of loneliness that each of them carried? "Why are you trying to tear us apart?" he found himself saying, surprising even himself with the strength in his voice. The man turned to Derek, eyes narrowing like he was sizing him up. "You got a problem with me? You think you belong here?" The words dripped with contempt, and Derek could feel the warmth of hope that had been ignited minutes earlier start to flicker dangerously low again. With a quick glance, Claire met Derek's eyes, her expression urging him to stay strong, to not let the dark invade this precious moment. He took a shaky breath, fighting against the instinct to shrink back under the force of aggression. Everyone deserves to be heard. To feel seen. "You don't know us," Derek shot back, stepping forward, feeling the weight of every experience that had brought him to this moment pressing behind him. "We're more than just our struggles. We're trying to find a way, together." There was a murmur from the crowd, a ripple of shared belief and defiance. The tension was palpable, and for a moment, it seemed as if Derek was no longer alone. If he was bold enough to stand, then maybe, just maybe, they could all stand together. The leader of the intruders hesitated, a flicker of uncertainty shadowing his features. But that moment was lost as another one of his companions snickered. "Look at this loser. You really think you're going to change anything?" The word stung, a reminder of Derek's own insecurities. He could feel the warmth creeping back into his cheeks, the familiar weight of hopelessness trying to settle like a heavy blanket. But then he remembered the woman's story. Her strength. It poured through him, igniting a spark of resistance. "Change starts with us fighting back against people like you," he shouted, his voice ringing out with conviction that surprised even him. The crowd shifted again, some nodding, others murmuring support. A collective spirit began to rise. Maybe they were learning to find their voices all at once. Suddenly, the surrounding atmosphere thickened with anticipation. What would happen next? Would the men retreat, or would this lead to something more chaotic? And in that charged silence, something deep in Derek ignited a flicker of hope. It was fragile, but it was there. Would it be enough to stand against the storm that had just arrived? Derek felt the room tremble with energy. The crowd surged with renewed strength around him, forming a protective barrier. "You don't know the power of unity," he declared, locking eyes with Claire and the brave woman who had spoken before. "We're not going back. Not now." The men exchanged glances, confusion mixing with the aggression still pulsing through them. "You think talking tough is going to make a change? You're all fools," the leader sneered, eyes scanning the crowd. "What happens when talking doesn't cut it anymore? You're setting yourselves up for disappointment." But Derek stood taller, the warmth of courage flooding him again. "Disappointment? We're already living through it. We've felt the weight of rejection. But here, we're finally finding our way to tell our stories. Our pasts won't define us anymore. The crowd erupted in support. Derek could see the ebb of hostility in that moment. The leader and his friends faltered, their resolve cracking. The tension that clung to the air shifted, swirling toward hope and determination. But Claire felt a rush of nerves. What if they grew hostile again? What if their resolve ebbed away? Listen, the brave woman spoke again, stepping closer to the intruders. It's not just about talk, it's about healing. We're coming together to lift each other up. It takes vulnerability to build strength. The crowd rallied behind her words, an echo of shared purpose rippling outward. Derek felt something inside him shift again. This was unlike anything he had ever encountered. It wasn't just about him anymore. It was about all of them, their community, their collective healing. But the leader scoffed, and what do you know of strength? You've all been beaten down, cowed by struggles. Righteousness ignited in Derek's chest as he met the man's gaze. You think we're broken? We're waking up. Every one of us. It's time for the world to see our worth. The warmth from the crowd enveloped him like a comforting embrace. The spirit of resilience washed over him and flickered through the audience, igniting their strength. Stop! One of the intruders shouted, hands raised defensively as the crowd intensified its collective spirit. This is ridiculous. You're wasting your breath. But the crowd surged forward with a powerful wave of unity, refusing to back down. We're reclaiming our stories. They shouted, voices intertwined, harmonized into a chorus of hope. With the pressure climbing, the leader visibly shook, his bravado faltering. Is this what you think you want? He challenged, but with less resolve. Yes. Claire shouted, stepping forward boldly. It's more than what we want. It's what we deserve. And together, we're willing to fight for it. Derek felt the crowd's courage pour into him like a warm light breaking through a storm, lifting him beyond his own darkness. They needed to take it further. Let us show everyone that we're more than complaints. We're solutions. A community ready to face the world and uplift each other. A wave of energy cascaded throughout the audience, their faces lighting up with hope and determination. They weren't afraid anymore. At last, the leader hesitated, questioning what he thought was unshakable certainty. The air thickened with expectation. Could this truly be the moment of change? Could they turn the tide on hostility? This is where the turning point begins, Derek. Claire's cry rose above the tumult, resonating like a battle cry. The very foundations of doubt creaked as something monumental shifted around them. With a united voice, we reject fear. We choose connection together. In that tidal wave of emotion, something profound happened. The wall of hostility began to crumble, eroded by collective action and strength. The audience surged, overwhelming all remaining doubt. Little by little, the three intruders stepped back, eyes wide with an unsettling mix of confusion and realization. They could see the hope exploding from the grit of past battles to the bond newly formed. It was raw and unyielding. Claire squeezed Derek's hand, grounding him in a moment of selfless connection. This is our journey, together. This is not just about us. This is about creating connection, forging a path for healing. The intruders slowly retreated as if they were caught in a current beyond their control, recognition dawning. They were no longer formidable. Instead, they were painted with shades of uncertainty, and then, it happened. A collective cheer erupted from the crowd, a wave of support that cascaded forward like a tidal surge, washing away the remnants of fear and anger, lifting every voice into one powerful chorus. United in heart and spirit, they transformed a moment of confrontation into a powerful statement. They were not spectators in their own lives, they were warriors in their own stories, filled with infinite potential. As Derek turned to face his community, tears mixed with laughter twinkling in his eyes, he knew. They had ignited a change not just for themselves but for everyone who had ever felt lost in the shadows. With the crowd behind him and the warmth of unity around him, he realized that a new chapter was beginning, one where hope prevailed and community flourished, where paths intertwined into a shared journey toward a brighter tomorrow. Claire whispered softly, together, we've rewritten our narrative. And yes, they would continue. They would rise, and they would hold the light for those still lost. In that moment, they truly understood, hope is a choice, and they chose it fiercely. Now, as they stood perched at this precipice of hope, they knew the next part of their journey had just begun. And they were ready. You need to subscribe now to the channel so you don't miss the next exclusive stories that will lift your spirits. Leave a like now to feed the algorithm and spread this message of hope. Comment below with your reactions and feelings about this heartwarming ending. And don't wait not even one more second to share this video with at least 5 friends who need to see this transformation. Empower others. Our stories matter.